The Galaxy Council chuckled, confident they had measured Earth correctly. A primitive planet, a species too weak to matter. Their screen showed nothing but harmless signals, and their diplomats whispered congratulations among themselves. Then humanity responded, not with words, not with pleas, not with fear. Ships erupted from every orbit. Systems they shouldn't have reached flickered and died. Fleets they dismissed as toys evaporated before the sensors could track them. Every rule the Council held sacred shattered under precision, speed, and ingenuity they had never imagined. In that moment, laughter turned to silence. Earth had spoken, and the galaxy was listening. The rejection. First contact. The transport vessel emerged from the warp tunnel with a shudder that rattled every bolt in its frame. Ambassador David Torres gripped the armrest of his seat and watched through the viewport as the stars settled back into their normal positions. Ahead of them, floating in the darkness of space, like a jewel carved from silver and crystal, was Station Zenith -7. David had seen pictures, of course. Everyone on Earth had seen pictures. But seeing it with his own eyes was different. The station was massive, easily the size of a small moon. Thousands of ships from hundreds of worlds docked at its ports. Lights flickered across its surface like a city that never slept. This was the heart of galactic civilization, the place where the most advanced species in the known universe gathered to make decisions that affected trillions of lives. And today, humanity would ask to join them. Dr. Lisa Park sat beside David, her hands folded calmly in her lap despite the tension that filled the cabin. She was Earth's chief scientist, the woman who had helped humanity achieve faster than light travel just 8 years ago. Her hair was starting to gray at the temples, but her eyes were sharp and focused. "How do you feel?" she asked quietly. David managed a small smile. "Like I'm about to walk into a room full of gods and ask them to make me their equal." "They're not gods," Lisa said firmly. "They're just older than us. That's all." Colonel James Rodriguez spoke up from the back of the cabin. He was the military representative, a decorated soldier with scars on his hands and a reputation for never backing down from a fight. "Older doesn't mean better," he said. "Remember that when we're in there." The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. "We're being directed to Docking Bay 47. Standard protocol. They'll escort us to the council chamber." David nodded and stood up, straightening his formal uniform. It was navy blue with silver trim, designed to represent Earth's oceans and skies. The other delegates wore similar uniforms. There were 12 of them in total, representing every continent and culture on their homeworld. They had been chosen carefully, trained extensively, and prepared for this moment for 3 years. But as their ship docked and they stepped out into the station, David felt his confidence waver. The corridor they entered was enormous, with ceilings so high they disappeared into shadow. Aliens of every imaginable shape and size moved past them without a second glance. Some walked on legs, others floated, and still others seemed to phase in and out of existence as if they existed in multiple dimensions at once. A guide was waiting for them. It was a tall, thin creature with 4 arms and skin that shimmered like oil and water. Its face was difficult to read, but when it spoke, the translation device in David's ear rendered its words in perfect English. "Follow me. The Council of Apex Species will see you now." They walked for what felt like miles through corridors that seemed to shift and change around them. David realized the station itself was alive in some way, adapting to the needs of whoever walked its halls. Finally, they reached a set of doors, so tall that David had to crane his neck back to see the top of them. The doors opened without a sound. The council chamber was circular and vast. Rings of seats rose up from the center like an amphitheater, filled with representatives from species David had never seen before. At the very top, on a platform that floated without any visible support, sat the Council of Apex Species. There were 7 of them, each representing a civilization that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. David walked to the center of the chamber with his delegation behind him. The floor beneath his feet was transparent, and he could see stars moving below. It made him feel like he was standing on nothing at all, A voice echoed through the chamber, deep and resonant. It came from a being that looked like living stone, covered in glowing symbols that pulsed with light. You may speak, humans of Earth. David took a deep breath. He had rehearsed his speech 1,000 times. He had refined every word, every gesture, every pause. Now, standing before these ancient powers, he spoke from his heart, honored members of the council, representatives of the galactic community. I am Ambassador David Torres of Earth. We come before you with respect and hope. Our world is young. Yes, our civilization has only recently reached the stars. But we have much to offer. He gestured to Dr. Park. We have minds that never stop asking questions, that never stop searching for answers. We have creativity that lets us see problems in new ways. He gestured to Colonel Rodriguez. We have courage and determination. We have overcome wars and disasters. We have learned to work together despite our differences. David's voice grew stronger. We asked for membership in the Galactic Council. We asked for the chance to trade, to learn, to contribute. We asked to be recognized as equals among the stars. Silence filled the chamber. David waited, his heart pounding. The council members looked at each other. Some seemed to be communicating in ways he could not perceive. Then one of them laughed. It was a harsh sound, like rocks grinding together. The being of living stone leaned forward, and David could see contempt in the way it moved. Equals, it said, and the word dripped with mockery. You call yourselves equals. You who have barely left your own solar system. You who achieved basic warp travel only 8 years ago. Another council member spoke. This one was covered in scales that reflected light like mirrors. Your technology level is rated at 0.7 on the Kardashev scale. You cannot even harness the full energy of your own star. Most species achieve that before they develop spaceflight. A third council member, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline form, added its voice. You have no unique resources. Your world is common. Your biology is fragile. Your lifespans are brief. What exactly do you think you can offer us that we do not already have? David felt his face grow hot, but he kept his voice steady. We offer our perspective. We offer fresh ideas. We offer partnership. Partnership. The word came from a fourth council member, something that looked like a mass of tentacles suspended in a globe of liquid. You would partner with species that were crossing galaxies when your ancestors were still living in caves. The arrogance of youth is always amusing. The being of Livingstone raised one massive hand. The council has heard your petition. We will vote now. The vote took seconds. 7 voices, 7 rejections. Not a single council member voted to accept Earth's membership. The decision is final, the stone being announced. Earth is denied membership in the Galactic Council. You may return to your world. Perhaps in 10,000 years, when you have matured as a species, you may petition again. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Not cruel laughter exactly, but dismissive. The laughter of adults watching a child try to join their conversation. David stood frozen. Behind him, he heard Lisa's sharp intake of breath. He heard James mutter something under his breath that the translation devices probably should not have picked up. But David himself said nothing. He simply turned and walked toward the exit, his delegation following in silence. As they reached the doors, David stopped. He turned back to face the council chamber, and in a clear voice that carried across the vast space, he said, "You will regret this decision." More laughter followed them out. On a journey back to Earth, nobody spoke much. They were all processing what had happened, trying to understand how they had failed so completely. David sat in his seat and stared out at the stars rushing past. Dr. Lisa Park finally broke the silence. They're wrong, about everything, are they? David asked quietly. Yes. Her voice was firm. They're wrong about what we can offer. They're wrong about our potential. And they're especially wrong about how long it will take us to prove it. Colonel Rodriguez leaned forward. So, what do we do? David was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, and it was not a pleasant smile. We stop asking for permission. We stop trying to join their club. We build our own. They have 10,000 years of technology, Lisa pointed out. And we have something they lost a long time ago, David replied. We have a reason to fight. We have something to prove. He looked at his colleagues, and in their eyes, he saw the same fire he felt burning in his own chest. Humanity had been rejected. Humanity had been mocked. And now humanity was going to show the galaxy exactly what that meant. When we get home, David said, we're going to start breaking rules. All of them? The ship jumped back into warp space, carrying Earth's delegates home. Behind them, the Council of Apex Species continued their business, already forgetting about the brief amusement the humans had provided. They would remember soon enough. The transformation, breaking the mold. 5 years changed everything. Dr. Lisa Park stood in the center of the Nevada Research Complex, a facility that officially did not exist on any map. Around her, 300 of Earth's brightest minds worked at stations that hummed with energy humanity had only theorized. About a few years ago, the complex stretched for miles underground, hidden beneath the desert where no satellites could see what they were building. Status report, Lisa said into her headset. A young engineer named Chen Wei looked up from his console. The quantum mesh is holding stable. We've maintained the connection for 72 hours now, without any degradation. Lisa allowed herself a small smile. 72 hours. The galactic standard for instantaneous communication relied on relay stations scattered across space, creating delays that could last hours or even days depending on distance. Earth had just bypassed that entire system. The quantum mesh network was impossible, according to every textbook the Galactic Council had ever written. It used entangled particles in ways that violated their understanding of physics. But it worked. A message sent from Earth could reach the other side of the galaxy in less than a second, with no relay stations, no infrastructure, nothing that could be tracked or controlled by anyone except humanity. Begin Phase 2 testing, Lisa ordered. Connect to the array on Mars. Chun Wei's fingers danced across his controls. On the main screen, data began flowing. Not from Mars as it was 8 minutes ago, but from Mars right now, this very instant. The engineers in the room broke into applause. Lisa's communicator buzzed. It was Ambassador David Torres, calling from Geneva, where he was meeting with Earth's unified government. She stepped into a private office to take the call. David's face appeared on the screen. He looked older now, with new lines around his eyes and gray streaking through his dark hair. The rejection at Zenith 7 had aged all of them. But his eyes still held that fire, that determination that had never gone out. I just got the report from Nevada, David said. The mesh is working. Better than working, Lisa replied. It's perfect. We can communicate with anyone, anywhere, instantly. The Council's information network just became obsolete. Good, because I have news from Colonel Rodriguez. The Forge initiative just completed its first full production cycle. Lisa felt her pulse quicken. Already? See for yourself. David switched the feed. The screen now showed a view of space near the asteroid belt. What Lisa saw made her catch her breath. The asteroid designated as 2024 KX-7 was gone. In its place was a massive structure of metal and glass, glowing with internal light. It was shaped like a giant ring, spinning slowly, with dozens of smaller structures attached to it like petals on a flower. That was a solid rock 3 months ago, David said. Now it's a fully functional factory and shipyard. The Forge consumed the entire asteroid and converted it into a mobile production facility. Lisa stared at the image. The Galactic Council built their factories on planets, using traditional construction methods that took decades. Earth had just turned a worthless space rock into an industrial complex in 3 months. And there were thousands of asteroids in the belt, each one a potential factory waiting to be awakened. How many more can we build? Lisa asked. Rodriguez says we can have 50 operational within 2 years. After that, the growth becomes exponential. Each forge can help build more forges. Lisa did the math in her head. 50 forges, each producing ships and equipment. Within 5 years, Earth could have a fleet that rivaled any single council species. Within 10 years, they could have more. There's something else, David continued. We've been contacted by the Minor Coalition. The who? Exactly. David's expression turned serious. Turns out there are hundreds of species out there who the Council ignores. Worlds that are too small, too poor, or too weak to matter. They've been watching us. They saw what happened at Zenith 7. They know we were rejected. And they want to talk. They want to know how we're advancing so fast. They want to know if we're taking allies. Lisa leaned back in her chair, processing this information. The Council of Apex Species controlled the galaxy through a combination of superior technology and ancient alliances. They set the rules, controlled the trade routes, and decided who mattered and who did not. The Minor Coalition was everyone they had left behind. What did you tell them? Lisa asked. I told them we're very interested in new friends, David said with a slight smile. We're meeting with their representatives next week on Kepler 442b. It's neutral territory, outside council space. Lisa nodded slowly. This was bigger than she had imagined. Earth was not just advancing technologically. Earth was building something the galaxy had never seen before, an alternative to the council's power structure. I need to show you one more thing, David said. He switched the feed again. This time, the screen showed a shipyard in orbit above Earth. But unlike the massive military installations that had been built over the past 5 years, this structure was different. It was elegant, almost artistic in design, and at its center, still under construction, was a ship unlike anything Lisa had ever seen. It was massive, easily 3 times the size of Earth's largest warships. But it was not built for war. Its hull was covered in sensor arrays and communication dishes. Its design spoke of exploration and discovery, not destruction. What is that? Lisa breathed. The ESV Horizon? Our first deep space explorer. When it's finished, it will be able to travel farther and faster than anything the Council has. It will carry a crew of 5,000 from dozens of different species. Scientists, engineers, diplomats, families. You're building an ark, Lisa realized. I'm building a symbol, David corrected. The Council thinks in terms of territory and control. We're going to think in terms of cooperation and discovery. The horizon will show the galaxy that there's another way. Lisa looked at the beautiful ship taking shape on her screen. 5 years ago, they had been rejected and mocked. Now they were building wonders. How did we do this? She asked quietly. How did we advance so fast? David was quiet for a moment. We stopped following the rules. The Council has protocols for everything. They have approved research paths, standard development timelines, proper procedures. They've been doing things the same way for so long that they've forgotten how to innovate. And we threw out the rule book. We let our scientists talk to each other across disciplines. We combined technologies that the Council keeps separate. We asked questions they decided were answered centuries ago. David leaned closer to the camera. We acted like humans, Lisa. Curious, reckless, creative humans. And it turns out that's exactly what the galaxy needed. A priority alert flashed on Lisa's console. She glanced at it and felt her blood run cold. David, I'm getting reports from the outer monitoring stations. There's a fleet moving through Sector 7. 30 ships, heavy cruiser class. They're bearing the insignia of the Kryn Empire. David's expression darkened. The Kryn were one of the Council's most aggressive member species. They had built their power through conquest, taking worlds from species too weak to resist. Where are they heading? David asked. Lisa pulled up the tactical display. If they maintain their current course, they'll reach the Talon system in 6 hours. What's in the Talon system? Lisa checked the database. A developing civilization. Pre-warp technology. Population of about 4 billion. They're one of the species that reached out to us last month. They wanted to join the Minor Coalition. David and Lisa looked at each other through the screen. They both understood what was happening. The Kryn had learned that the Talon were talking to Earth. They were moving to take the planet before any alliance could form. How long would it take us to get there? David asked. Our fastest ships could reach the Talon system in 8 hours using standard warp. But by then the Kryn will have already started their attack. David was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was hard as steel. Activate the horizon. I know it's not finished, but is it spaceworthy? Barely. The weapon systems aren't installed. The shields are at 60% capacity. Half the crew quarters aren't even pressurized yet. But it can fly? Yes, then get it moving. I want the horizon and every combat-ready ship we have heading to the Talon system within the hour. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. David, if we do this, if we intervene in council space without authorization, there's no going back. This will be war. We passed the point of no return 5 years ago when we decided to stop asking permission, David replied. The Kryn are going to attack innocent people because those people talk to us. That makes it our responsibility. David's smile was cold. Good. Let them. Let the whole galaxy see that Earth doesn't follow laws that protect murderers. Let them see that we stand with the weak instead of exploiting them. He leaned forward, and Lisa saw in his eyes the same expression he had worn when they left Zenith 7 5 years ago. We asked them nicely once, Lisa. We begged for a seat at their table. They laughed at us. Now we're going to build our own table, and we're going to invite everyone they left behind. And if the council tries to stop us, then they'll learn the same lesson the Kryn are about to learn. That humanity doesn't back down. Not anymore. Not ever again. The call ended. Lisa stood alone in her office, staring at the tactical display showing the Kryn fleet moving toward innocent people. She thought about the rejection at Zenith 7. She thought about 5 years of impossible work, of breaking every rule, of building wonders the galaxy said could not exist. Then she picked up her communicator and gave the order that would change everything. All ships. This is Dr. Park. Prepare for combat operations. We're going to war. The new order, when wolves become shepherds, the Kryn fleet dropped out of warp space, like predators descending on prey. 30 heavy cruisers arranged themselves in standard attack formation around the planet Talon. On the bridge of the flagship Bloodclaw, Commander Varkesh studied the world below with satisfaction. Talon was perfect for conquest. Rich in minerals, covered in oceans full of harvesting potential, and populated by a species too primitive to resist. The Talon had no weapons that could reach space, no shields, no way to fight back. Within a day, the planet would belong to the Kryn Empire. Begin bombardment of military installations, Varkesh ordered. Target their communication centers first. I want them isolated and afraid. His weapons officer activated the firing controls. Energy beams lanced down toward the planet's surface. Cities lit up with explosions. Fires spread across the continents. The Talon were broadcasting desperate pleas on all frequencies, begging for help that would never come. Then something impossible happened. Space itself seemed to tear open. Not the familiar distortion of warp travel, but something else entirely. A rupture in reality that blazed with blue light. The ESV horizon emerged. Varkesh stared at the ship appearing before him. It was massive, dwarfing even his largest cruisers. But more disturbing was how it had arrived. No warp signature, no fold space distortion, nothing his sensors could have detected. It had simply appeared as if it had always been there. Unknown vessel, identify yourself, Varkesh transmitted. You are in Kryn territorial space. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. The response came in perfect Kryn language, spoken by a human voice that sounded almost amused. This is Ambassador David Torres of Earth. Talon is under our protection. You have 30 seconds to withdraw your fleet, or we will remove it for you. Varkesh laughed. 1 ship against 30. Even an impressive ship could not win those odds. You are brave, human. But bravery without wisdom is just stupidity. He never finished the sentence. Space tore open again. And again. And again. Dozens of ruptures appeared around the Kryn fleet, each one releasing an Earth vessel. They were smaller than the horizon, built for war rather than exploration. Sleek and deadly, they moved with a grace that Kryn ships could never match. New contact count. Varkesh's sensor officer reported, his voice shaking. 47 Earth vessels. No, wait, 63. They're still appearing. I count 112 hostile ships. Varkesh felt something he had not experienced in 20 years of conquest. Fear. All ships combat formation. Prepare to time's up, David Torres said. The Earth fleet opened fire. What happened next would be analyzed by military strategists for generations. The Kryn had superior numbers, heavier armor, and weapons that had conquered 100 worlds. But they had never faced anything like human technology. Earth weapons did not simply fire energy beams. They learned. Each shot analyzed the target's shields, adapted its frequency, and punched through defenses that should have held. When the Kryn adjusted their shields, the weapons adjusted faster. The Kryn missiles could not lock onto targets that moved the way Earth ships moved. They danced through space in patterns that violated every tactical doctrine, making turns that should have torn them apart, accelerating and stopping in ways that seemed to ignore the laws of physics. And the Earth ships were not alone. More ruptures appeared, smaller ones. Ships emerged bearing the colors of the minor coalition. The Talon's neighbors, species the Council had ignored for centuries, flying side by side with human vessels. They were not as advanced as Earth's fleet, but they were determined. They were fighting for people who could not fight for themselves. Shields failing on decks 4 through 7, Varkesh's damage control officer reported. We've lost the Razor Claw and the Darkfang. The Iron Jaw venting atmosphere. Return fire. Target that flagship. Varkesh roared. The Bloodclaw's weapons struck the horizon. For a moment, Varkesh felt hope. But then his sensor officer gave a report that made no sense. Sir, the enemy shields are not weakening. They're getting stronger. Our weapons are somehow feeding their power systems. Varkesh stared at his displays. It was impossible. Shields were supposed to weaken under fire, not strengthen. But the horizon was glowing brighter with each hit, and now it was returning fire with devastating accuracy. Commander, we're receiving a transmission from Supreme Warlord Drexer on Kryn Prime. He demands a status report. Varkesh activated the channel. The face of his supreme leader appeared on screen, scaled and scarred from 1,000 battles. Commander Varkesh, what is happening? Our sensors show you engaged with human forces. Supreme Warlord, we are under attack. The humans have technology that exceeds our projections. I request immediate reinforcements. An explosion rocked the Bloodclaw. Half the bridge lights went dark. Commander, you have 30 warships. You are telling me you cannot defeat one primitive species? Drexer's voice was filled with contempt. Sir, they are not primitive. They are... Another voice cut into the transmission. It was Ambassador David Torres, and somehow he had inserted himself into their private channel. Supreme Warlord Drexer, this is your only warning. Withdraw your fleet from Callan space. Withdraw all Kryn forces from the 12 worlds you have conquered in the past decade. Return those populations to freedom. Drexer's eyes widened. Then he laughed, a harsh sound like breaking glass. You dare to give me orders, human? The Kryn Empire has ruled for 6,000 years. We do not take commands from children playing with stolen technology. Then you will learn a hard lesson, David replied. Humanity protects the defenseless now. That is our purpose. That is our promise. And we keep our promises. Destroy them? Drexer ordered Varkesh. Destroy them all. Show these humans what happens when they challenge true power. The transmission ended. Varkesh looked at his tactical display. In the 20 minutes since the battle began, he had lost 18 ships. 18. The humans had lost none. All remaining vessels, full retreat. Jump to, sir. We cannot. The humans have deployed some kind of field. Warp engines will not engage. Varkesh realized with cold horror that he was trapped. The humans had locked down the entire system. There would be no retreat, no reinforcements, no escape. Then we fight to the last, he said quietly. The battle lasted another hour. When it ended, the Kryn fleet was destroyed. Not a single ship remained intact. Barkesh himself survived only because the humans pulled him. From his burning vessel seconds before it floated, he found himself in the medical bay of the horizon, surrounded by human doctors who treated his injuries with surprising care. When he was stable, guards escorted him to a meeting room. Ambassador David Torres was waiting. The human looked tired. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his uniform showed signs of the strain he had been under. But when he looked at Varkesh, his gaze was steady and firm. "You killed my warriors," Varkesh said. "You attacked innocent people," David replied. "What did you expect?" "I expected to conquer another primitive world, as the Kryn have done for 6 millennia. As the Council permits." The Council. David's voice was bitter. "Yes, let's talk about the Council." He activated a holographic display. It showed Zenith 7, the massive station where the Council of Apex Species ruled the galaxy. 5 years ago, I stood before them and asked for membership. I asked to join their civilization. Do you know what they did? They rejected you. Everyone knows this story. They laughed at me, David corrected. They called us primitive. They said we had nothing to offer. They told us to come back in 10,000 years when we had evolved beyond our animal nature. Barkesh said nothing. He could see where this was going. So we went home, David continued. And we decided that if the Council's civilization permitted species like yours to prey on the weak, then their civilization was not worth joining. We decided to build something better. Better, Barkesh scoffed. You have technology, yes. You won one battle. But the Council has thousands of worlds, millions of ships. You cannot defeat them. We don't need to defeat them, David said. We just need to offer an alternative. He changed the holographic display. Now it showed dozens of star systems, each marked with a symbol Varkesh did not recognize. These are the worlds that have joined the Democratic Assembly. Talon will be the 48th. Every one of them was ignored by the Council. Too small, too poor, too weak to matter. But together they matter very much. David zoomed out, showing more of the galaxy. The Council rules through fear and tradition. We're offering something they never thought to provide. Hope, protection, equality. Every species gets a vote, regardless of their technology level or military strength. Every voice matters. Impossible, Varkesh muttered. The strong must rule the weak. That is the natural order. That was the natural order, David corrected. We're creating a new one. Before Varkesh could respond, an alert sounded. Priority transmission was coming through. David accepted it, and the hologram changed to show the Council. Chamber at Zenith-7. All 7 members of the Council of Apex Species were present. The being of living stone that had rejected Earth 5 years ago spoke first, its voice resonating with barely contained anger. Ambassador Torres, you have violated 73 separate galactic laws. You have attacked a member species without provocation. You have interfered with legitimate territorial expansion. The Council demands your immediate surrender. David smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Legitimate? You call the conquest of defenseless people legitimate? The Kryn followed established precedent, another Council member said. These protocols have maintained galactic stability for 10,000 years. Your stability was built on the suffering of everyone you deemed unworthy, David shot back. Well, the unworthy are done suffering. The Democratic Assembly stands ready to defend any world that asks for our protection. Your age of conquest is over. The chamber erupted in outrage. Council members shouted over each other. Finally, the being of Livingstone raised one massive hand. You cannot win this war, human. We have the resources of 1,000 civilizations. We have fleets that darken the stars. We will crush you and scatter your ashes across the void. Then come and try, David said quietly. But know this. Every battle you fight against us is a battle you fight in front of the whole galaxy. Every world you threaten to maintain your power is a world that will turn against you. You rule through fear, and we're teaching the galaxy not to be afraid anymore. He leaned forward. You laughed at me 5 years ago. You said humanity was too primitive to matter. You were wrong. We mattered then, and we matter now. And we're going to keep mattering until every species in this galaxy has the same chance we fought for. This conversation is over, the stone being declared. The council will take action. You will face the consequences of your defiance. I look forward to it, David replied, and ended the transmission. Silence filled the room. Varkesh looked at the human who had just declared war on the most powerful alliance in galactic history. A human whose species had been traveling in space for less than a decade. You are insane, Varkesh said finally. Maybe, David agreed. But we're also right. And in the end, that's what matters. He stood up and walked to the viewport. Outside, Earth ships and minor coalition vessels flew in formation, protecting Talon as the planet began to heal from the Crane attack. The Council thinks in terms of centuries and millennia, David said. They move slowly because they believe they have all the time in the universe. But they're wrong. Change is coming whether they accept it or not. He turned back to Varkesh. You're going to witness the fall of the old order, Commander. You're going to watch as everything your empire believed turns to dust. And when it's over, you'll have a choice. You can cling to the past, or you can help us build a better future. Varkesh said nothing. He was a warrior of the Kryn Empire, trained from birth to conquer and dominate. But as he looked at this human, this representative of a species that had been mocked and dismissed, he felt something shift inside him. Perhaps the galaxy really was changing. And perhaps humanity was exactly the catalyst it needed. On Zenith 7, the Council of Apex Species gathered in emergency session. They had ruled for 10,000 years. They had seen civilizations rise and fall. They had thought themselves eternal and unchanging, but as they watched reports of more worlds joining the Democratic Assembly, as they saw their member species beginning to question the old laws, they began to understand something terrifying. The age of the Council was ending. And humanity, the species they had laughed at and dismissed, was writing the first chapter of what came next. The galaxy would never be the same.